Guys, Aaron here, and I do want to apologize. I've been sick the last couple of days with a common cold, so my voice is going to sound a little deep and raspy. raspy. So I do apologize for that, so bear with me. I've been taking Mucinex and ibuprofen. So in this video, I want to talk about my new purchase, the BK9 BK9 Ka-Bar. So basically, um, I do like knives. I use knives a lot. I'm a bow maker and survivalist, so I tend to use a lot of those. I'm also a flint knapper, so I tend to use a combination of primitive tools and steel tools. But just recently, I've gotten into collecting knives, and I did some research on a blade that would fit my criteria for a survival blade, which I don't like using that word too much. It's kind of a dirty word. Anyways, so I've got the BK9, the Becker BK9. This knife on Amazon, purchased from Ka-Bar Company or a subsidiary of Ka-Bar. Originally was, I believe, $89.99 without shipping, and then they dropped the price down to $66. So I saved a couple bucks on Amazon. So overall, this is the knife, and you'll see a slight coating on there. It's a combination of mineral oil and animal fat. And yes, it looks a lot of like there's a lot on there. I tend to do that with my blades because Houston, Texas, where I reside, is actually a high humidity environment. So the steel on this knife is I believe a 1095 carbon steel Crovan. Now I'm no expert on materials for steel. Like I said, I usually practice and replicate primitive tools and skills. So I'm not a knife expert by any means. But I believe from my research, I've noticed that carbon steel tends to rust a lot easier than, let's say, stainless steel. So I tend to oil my blades when not in use. So I believe the overall length of this knife is 14 and a quarter or 14 and a half. And don't get mad if I don't know these specs. Do your own research. See the blade length, see what fits you. It is, I believe, about a quarter-inch thick, and the knife weight is about a pound. So you get a pretty hefty knife. What I look for in a survival knife, I look for a combination of things. Now, there's some guys who say, don't use big knives. There's some guys who say don't use small knives. It depends on what you're using it for. I'm looking for a knife that I can use to cut down small saplings. I'm a bow maker. My primary hunting tool is a bow. Obviously, if I were in a situation, 80 to 90% of my calorie intake via animals would be through trapping, making primitive traps. The other 20 to 10% would be from foraging edible plants and tubers and roots. But I want a knife that I can process wood if I need to, because there's a lot of guys out there that will, process. They'll take their knife and baton it, split wood, and then they break their knife and wonder why the hell that happened. In reality, you'd be carrying some sort of saw, or you'd be carrying some sort of camp axe or hatchet or large forest axe. You don't want to use your knife as a batoning weapon or tool unless you absolutely have to. But this knife can do it for sure. It's got the weight. It's got a pound. It's got a 9-inch blade. So I can literally cut 2 to 3 inch thick saplings or even larger trees with this knife. It's a full tang design. And through the handle, there is a small gap in between these, I don't know what they're called, rivets or whatever you want to call them. But that's okay, because that's a part of the knife that's not undergoing a lot of stress. And I like this knife because it came through the box razor sharp. I mean, I'd show you now, but there's oil on the blade. It shaves hair off easily. And I like this knife because it's got the weight. It's heavy enough to use for chopping. I can tiller my bows like this. I can scrape and tiller my bows almost like a small machete. And it's got a pretty damn sharp point I can use for making bow drill sockets. But also at the same time, it's got stability. There's no finger choil on this knife. But if you put your finger behind this handle and use that, you can carve with this really easily. It's a very well balanced knife. And like I said, it's 1095 Crovan high carbon steel. It's a really good knife, man. I haven't put it to test yet, which is kind of hypocritical of me to be doing a review. But I'm just going off what I know so far. Now the sheath, I think, is a ballistic nylon sheath. It comes with a plastic insert, pretty sturdy when you feel it. And then it comes with a pocket. Now I do know these knives used to have smaller knives that came with the purchase. But what I've got in my pocket, in my ideal survival knife, is I've got a small whetstone, a diamond sharpener, some sort of artificial stone, pocket stone that I can use to sharpen. It comes with two different grits, a smooth grit and a fine and a coarse grit. Then I've got my fire steel. I'm not going to get into fire steels. I most of my fires are primitively made, bow drill, hand drill, but I do carry with me a fire steel that I use for making quick fires. But definitely a good purchase. I mean, Ka-Bar is a well-known brand, and Becker supposedly does a lot of tests on his knives and comes up with the best kind of design he can. Now, this is specified as a combat Bowie. It's really designed for combat. I can see it being useful, but it's a little bit cumbersome. It's a big blade. But anyways, guys, I might do a video on putting it to the test, but so far, I'm happy with it. The only thing I don't like about it is that you can see the bevel. See how it's wide there, and on this side, it's a little thinner. This is more of a cosmetic issue. It's still razor sharp. It just means that once this knife dulls out, I'll have to remove more material from the smaller bevel side than the larger one. That way I can get an even grind or bevel. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked the review. I do recommend the knife if you're into that kind of stuff. It's relatively cheap considering its quality. You can pick it up for no more than $95 plus shipping and handling. All right, guys, take care.